Be me, 32-year-old feminist professor teaching Gender Studies 101, have a PhD in intersectional feminist theory from an elite liberal arts college. Spent 7 years working on my dissertation about the patriarchal structures in refrigerator design. Yes, refrigerator design. You wouldn't understand the depth of my academic rigor. Finally have my dream job, teaching the youth about systemic oppression. Wake up this Tuesday morning feeling empowered as always. Do my morning affirmations in the mirror about smashing the patriarchy. Put on my favorite outfit, red flannel shirt, ripped jeans, Doc Martens. Have about 17 different pins on my messenger bag about various social causes. Drive my Subaru to campus, listening to my podcast about deconstructing masculine toxicity. Arrive at my office, which is covered in inspirational quotes from feminist icons. Have at least 40 posters about checking your privilege. Check my email and immediately get triggered by the department head using guys as a gender-neutral term. Draft a 17-paragraph response about microaggressions, but save it as a draft. We'll send it later after I've added more academic sources to really drive the point home. Gather my materials for today's class. Today we're discussing how everything men do is actually problematic. To have my lesson plan perfectly organized to show how male achievement is built on oppressing women. Walking to class, feeling confident because I'm changing minds and educating the next generation. This is my 3rd year teaching, and I've never had anyone seriously challenge my worldview. Most students just nod along and agree because they want good grades. Some of them actually seem to drink the Kool-Aid, which is great. Get to my classroom 15 minutes early as always. Write on the board in large letters, all men benefit from patriarchy, whether they know it or not. Students start filing in. I count them with satisfaction. 42 students. About 30 women and 12 men. The men always sit in the back looking uncomfortable, which is exactly what they should feel. One student catches my eye, this guy who sits in the middle. Something about him has always irritated me since day one. He actually does all the readings, participates thoughtfully, asks questions. But there's this calm confidence about him that screams privilege. Probably comes from money, probably never had to struggle for anything. His name is something generic, like Tyler or Connor or whatever. He always turns in papers that are well-researched but subtly challenge my main points. He gives him B grades, because while his work is good, his perspective is clearly influenced by patriarchal thinking. Today he's sitting there, with his notebook open, looking attentive. Something about his energy today feels different though. Can't quite place it, but whatever, I'm sure I can handle anything he throws at me. Class starts, and I launch into my prepared lecture, talking about how the concept of meritocracy is a lie designed to justify male dominance, explaining how men throughout history have only succeeded because they oppressed women. Every invention, every discovery, every achievement by a man was built on the backs of women's unpaid labor, getting really into it, pacing back and forth. This is my passion. This is what I live for. About 20 minutes into my lecture, Connor, or Tyler, or whatever, raises his hand. Normally I hate being interrupted during my flow, but I believe in fostering discussion. Call on him with a slightly annoyed tone. He asks, in this totally calm voice, if he can pose a question about the framework I'm using. Immediately my defenses go up, but I say yes, because I'm a fair and open-minded educator. He starts asking about my statement that all male achievement is based on oppression. References 3 different examples from my own syllabus readings. Points out inconsistencies in how I'm applying the theoretical framework. But other students are starting to pay attention, putting down their phones. I can feel my face getting hot because how dare this privileged man question my expertise? I have a PhD, I've published papers. Who is he to challenge me? Try to respond by explaining that he's not understanding the nuance of intersectional analysis. Use a lot of big academic words to make my point sound more legitimate. He just nods and writes something down. Think I've shut him down. Feel a small sense of victory. Continue with my lecture, now talking about how men need to sit down and listen to women, how male voices are overrepresented in every field, how men take up too much space in classrooms and meetings. Literally the exact thing I'm doing right now, but that's different because I'm educating. About 10 minutes later, his hand goes up again. Consider ignoring it, but other students are looking at him now. Call on him with barely concealed irritation in my voice. He asks another question, this time about statistics I cited. Wants to know the source and methodology. Of course I know the source. It's from a very reputable feminist research collective. Tell him the source, expecting that to be enough. He pulls out his laptop, and within 30 seconds has the actual study pulled up, starts reading from it in front of the whole class. The study's methodology is apparently completely different from how I described it. The sample size was way smaller than I said. The conclusions were way more nuanced than my absolutist statement. Feel my heart racing. This is ambush behavior. This is typical male aggression. Try to regain control by saying that the specific numbers don't matter as much as the broader pattern. He just nods again and closes his laptop. Some of the students are whispering to each other now. Can feel my authority slipping, and I hate it. Decide to really drive home my point about male privilege, to reassert dominance. Launch into an impassioned speech about how men need to acknowledge their inherent advantages. Talk about how every man in this room has benefited from sexism whether they admit it or not. Point out that statistically, men earn more, hold more positions of power, face less violence. Really getting into it. My voice is raised. I'm using hand gestures. I can see some of the female students nodding along enthusiastically. This is what I'm here for, these moments of breaking through. Finish my speech, feeling like I've really made an impact. That guy's hand goes up again. Literally cannot believe this. He's doing the exact male behavior I just criticized. Taking up too much space, demanding attention, refusing to just listen, call on him with obvious frustration. He apologizes for taking up class time, but says he has a genuine question. The apology feels sarcastic somehow, even though his tone is completely neutral. He asks if I can explain how the framework I'm using accounts for class differences. Mentions something about how wealthy women often exploit poor men. Brings up specific historical examples. References 2 books that are literally on my own syllabus. I assigned those books. How did he weaponize them against me? Stammer something about how that's a false equivalence. Say that we can't use outlier examples to dismiss systematic patterns. He nods and asks a follow-up question. Wants to know if wealthy white women like me benefit from privilege. The like me feels pointed. Of course I've acknowledged my privilege. I do it all the time. Tell him that yes, I have white privilege and class privilege, but that doesn't negate sexism. He agrees and says, that's a fair point. Think I've finally gotten through to him. He then asks why the same logic doesn't apply to individual men. If I can be privileged in some ways and oppressed in others, can't men be too? Feel like I'm being backed into a corner by his logic. This is sophistry. This is exactly what men do. They use logical-sounding arguments to distract from emotional truth, to tell him that he's using false equivalence and whataboutism. He asks me to explain how it's false equivalence. Other students are fully engaged now. This has become a debate. Never wanted my classroom to be a debate space. It's supposed to be a learning space. Learning means accepting what I teach them, not questioning it constantly. Try to explain using more academic jargon. Throw in terms like heteronormative patriarchal structures and hegemonic masculinity. He listens carefully and then asks for concrete definitions of each term. Of course I know what they mean. I use them every day. But trying to define them in a way that supports my argument while he's clearly ready to poke holes. Give somewhat circular definitions that reference each other. Can see confusion on some students' faces. He thanks me for the definitions and then points out the circular reasoning. Does it politely, doesn't raise his voice, just states it calmly. Want to scream at him that he's being aggressive and domineering. But he's literally just sitting there speaking in a normal tone. Check the clock and realize we're only halfway through class. This is a nightmare. I've lost complete control of my own classroom. Decide to pivot. Ask if anyone else has questions or comments, hoping one of my good students will back me up. One of the feminist girls in the front raises her hand. Thank God. She starts to say something supportive about male privilege. Before she can finish, another student raises her hand. Call on her, hoping for more support. She asks if what the guy said earlier about the study was true. Wants to know if I really did misrepresent the research. Feel betrayed. These are supposed to be my allies. Explain that interpretation of research is subjective, that different scholars can draw different conclusions from the same data. The guy raises his hand again. Literally want to tell him to shut up, but that would prove his point about me being authoritarian. Call on him, because what else can I do? He agrees that interpretation is subjective, but asks if factual claims about methodology should be accurate. It brings up that I said the sample size was 5,000, when it was actually 500. That's not interpretation. That's just incorrect information. Some students are now definitely on their phones, looking this up. You can see them finding the study, reading it, whispering to each other. Feel my face burning red hot. Maybe I did misremember the exact numbers, but the point still stands. Tell the class that the specific statistics aren't as important as understanding systemic patterns. He asks how we can understand systemic patterns without accurate data. It's a reasonable question, which makes me hate it even more. Try to respond by talking about lived experiences and how women's testimonies matter more than numbers. He nods and says, lived experiences are important. Then asks if men's lived experiences matter too. Of course they do, but that's not the point. Men's experiences are centered everywhere else. My classroom is for centering women. Tell him this directly. He asks if that's not a form of discrimination, treating people differently based on their gender. Feel like my head is going to explode. He's twisting everything, making it seem like I'm the sexist one. This is classic MRA tactics. I've read about this. Tell him he's using men's rights activist rhetoric. He says he's not an MRA. He's just asking questions about consistency in my framework. Other students are completely silent now, watching this unfold. Can feel my authority crumbling with every exchange. Try to reassert control by saying, we need to move on to other material. He apologizes again and says he has just one more question. Everything in me wants to say no, but I'm supposed to be the open-minded educator. Say, fine. One more question. He asks about my grading rubric. I wants to know if I grade based on the quality of arguments or agreement with my positions. It's a trap question, and I know it. If I say quality, he'll point out that I give lower grades to papers that disagree with me. If I say agreement matters, I'll sound like an ideologue. Try to thread the needle by saying, I grade on understanding of course concepts. He asks if it's possible to understand a concept and still disagree with it. Of course it is, but students who disagree usually don't actually understand. Say something vague about how true understanding leads to correct conclusions. Can hear how circular that sounds, even as I'm saying it. He just nods and says, thank you for answering his questions. Sits back in his seat calmly. Feel like I've just been through an interrogation. Try to continue with my prepared lecture, but my train of thought is completely derailed. Keep stumbling over my words. Can't remember what point I was trying to make. Students are looking at me with expressions ranging from confusion to pity to smirking. Check the clock. Still 20 minutes left in class. Feel tears starting to form in my eyes. This has never happened before. I'm always in control, always confident. This man has systematically dismantled my authority in front of everyone. Didn't raise his voice, didn't insult me, just asked questions, which somehow makes it worse. If he'd been aggressive, I could have called it out as toxic masculinity. But he was calm and polite, which makes me look unhinged in comparison. Try to pull up my PowerPoint to get back on track. Hands are shaking as I click through slides. Start reading directly from the slides, which I never do. Sound robotic and unsure of myself. A few more students raise hands with questions. They're emboldened now, wanting to pile on. Answer them as briefly as possible. Trying not to engage. Can feel a tear rolling down my cheek. Wipe it away quickly, hoping nobody noticed. Several people definitely noticed. My voice cracks as I'm trying to explain intersectionality. It's my own fault for being emotional, but I can't help it. This is my safe space, my classroom, where I'm supposed to be respected. This man violated that space with his questions and logic. Check the clock again. Still, 15 minutes left. Cannot make it 15 more minutes like this. Tell the class we're going to end early today. Say something about wanting them to reflect on today's discussion. Start shoving my materials into my bag. Hands still shaking, can barely grip my papers. More tears coming now. Can't stop them. Students are packing up slowly, watching me. Avoid all eye contact. That guy stands up and has the audacity to approach my desk. I think he's going to gloat or say something smug. He thanks me for the discussion and says he found it educational. His tone is sincere, but that makes it feel more condescending. He can't even respond, just nod curtly. He leaves with the other students. Hear them talking in the hallway about what just happened. Some are definitely laughing. Stand alone in my classroom crying. This is the patriarchy's fault somehow. Men aren't supposed to question women, especially not in academic settings. He used his male privilege and confidence to undermine me. The fact that he was technically polite doesn't matter. It was a microaggression. Death by 1,000 cuts. Grab my bag and basically run out of the classroom. Don't want to be there when the next class comes in. Go back to my office and lock the door. Sit at my desk, sobbing. Pull out my phone and start typing a long post on my private feminist Facebook group. Describe what happened, frame it as a coordinated attack by an MRA student. Say he'd clearly been planning this for weeks. Mention how he targeted me specifically because I'm a woman in a position of authority. Other members of the group immediately respond with supportive comments. They validate my feelings and condemn the toxic masculinity on display. Someone suggests I report him to the dean for creating a hostile environment. That's actually a good idea. I should file a formal complaint. Start drafting the complaint in my head. He made me feel unsafe and undermined my authority. Caused me emotional distress to the point of tears. That has to be some kind of violation of the student code of conduct. Spend the next hour writing out a detailed complaint. Describe his pattern of questioning as harassment. Frame his politeness as a manipulation tactic. Mention my years of expertise that he disrespected. Feel better having it all written out. This is documentation. This is evidence. He can't just get away with treating me like this. Check my email and see that 3 students have already emailed me about today's class. Heart sinks, expecting them to pile on. Open the first email. It's from one of my best feminist students. She says she felt the male student was being aggressive and domineering. Thanks me for trying to educate him, despite his resistance. Feel validated. See? I'm not crazy. Open the second email. It's from a student I don't recognize. She says she found today's discussion really interesting. Mentions that she'd never thought about some of the questions that were raised. Asks if I have any recommended reading on the topics of class and gender intersection. It's a polite email, but I can read between the lines. She's been influenced by his questions, starting to doubt what I've taught. This is exactly the problem. One man with confidence can undo weeks of education. Open the third email, and it's from him, the guy who ruined my class. Email is professionally written, probably revised it multiple times. He apologizes if his questions came across as challenging my authority. He says that wasn't his intent. He was genuinely trying to understand the material. Mentions that he has great respect for my expertise. Asks if he can come to office hours to discuss the topics further. Wants to understand my perspective better. Read it 3 times, looking for hidden insults or sarcasm. I can't find any. But that doesn't mean they're not there. Men are good at hiding their aggression behind polite language. This is what the patriarchy has trained them to do. Respond with a brief email saying, "My office hours are posted on the syllabus." Don't address any of his specific points. Not going to give him the satisfaction. Spend the rest of the afternoon refreshing my Facebook post. Up to 47 supportive comments now. Everyone agrees that what happened to me was an attack. Several people share their own stories of being challenged by male students. We're all victims of the same system. Feel simultaneously validated and angry. This shouldn't happen to women in academia. We should be able to teach without being questioned by men who think they know better. Start working on my complaint to the dean. Add more details about feeling unsafe and targeted. Mention the emotional harm caused by his sustained questioning. Describe it as a pattern of behavior designed to undermine a female professor. Print it out and read it over. It's 4 pages long and meticulously detailed. This should be enough to get him at least a warning. Maybe required sensitivity training. Feel a sense of purpose. Having the complaint ready. Check the time and realize I have another class in 20 minutes. It's a different course. Smaller, mostly graduate students. Should be safer, more aligned with my perspectives. Wipe my face. Fix my makeup. Try to look composed. Walk to the other classroom with my head held high. Will not let one entitled man break my spirit. Get to the classroom and the energy is different. Only 12 students, all know each other, mostly women. Start the class and immediately one of them asks if I'm okay. Apparently word has spread already about what happened in my earlier class. Consider denying anything happened, but they clearly already know. Decide to be honest and frame it as a teaching moment. Tell them about the male student who monopolized class time with bad faith questions. Describe how he used polite tone to mask his aggression. Explain how this is a common tactic men use to silence women. The students are nodding sympathetically. One of them says she experienced something similar in another class. We spend the next 30 minutes sharing stories of male aggression in academia. It becomes a support group session instead of a class. But that's okay. This is valuable in its own way. These students are learning about real-world applications of feminist theory. By the end of class, I feel much better. Surrounded by supportive women who understand what I went through. Walk back to my office, feeling somewhat restored. Check my email again, and there are 5 more messages. 3 are from students in my morning class. 2 are asking clarifying questions about the assignment. 1 is from another student who was quiet during the confrontation. He writes that he thought the discussion was unfair to me. Says the other guy was clearly trying to show off and make me look bad. Thanks me for handling it with grace. Feel even more validated. See, it wasn't just me being sensitive. Other people recognized what was happening. The last email is from the department head. My stomach drops. Subject line is, student concerns. Open it with shaking hands. Apparently, the male student has already reached out to the department, not to complain but to ask about additional resources for understanding the course material. Mentioned that there was a robust discussion in class today. The department head is just checking in to see how the class went. It's a neutral email, but I can sense the subtext. He's already gotten ahead of this, framing himself as the eager learner, making me look like the unreasonable one if I complain about him. This is strategic. This is calculated. He knew exactly what he was doing. Respond to the department head with a carefully worded email. Say that class was fine, productive discussion, engaging students. Don't mention crying or leaving early. Definitely don't mention that I'm planning to file a complaint. I need to be strategic too. Spend the evening at home obsessing over what happened. Replay every exchange in my head. Think of all the things I should have said. Better responses, more authoritative shutdowns. Pour a large glass of wine and open my laptop. Start searching for information about the student. Find his Facebook profile, which is mostly private. Can see his profile picture though. He's smiling, looks confident and relaxed. Everything about him screams privilege. Check his LinkedIn. Comes from a state school background, not Ivy League. Worked his way through undergrad, apparently. Has some corporate job experience. Going back to school for a career change. He's older than traditional students, maybe late 20s. That explains the confidence. He thinks his life experience makes him qualified to challenge academic expertise. Classic Dunning-Kruger effect. Search his name with various keywords, looking for any dirt, any problematic posts. Find nothing, because of course he's smart enough to keep his online presence clean. Check if he's written anything, published anywhere. Find one op-ed he wrote for the school paper about campus free speech. It's moderate, reasoned, calls for dialogue between different viewpoints, uses all the right language about respecting diverse perspectives. It's infuriating because there's nothing I can point to as obviously problematic. He's good at this, good at appearing reasonable. Makes him more dangerous. Finish my wine and pour another glass. Pull up my complaint to the dean and read through it again. Add a paragraph about feeling systematically targeted. Mention that his questions were clearly designed to embarrass me. Describe the impact on my ability to teach effectively. Save it and close my laptop. Tomorrow, I'll submit it officially. Go to bed, but can't sleep. Keep thinking about his calm face as he asked each question. The way other students looked at him with respect. Respect they should have been showing me. Wake up the next morning exhausted. Check my phone and have texts from friends in the department. They've heard about what happened. Asking if I'm okay. Offering support. Appreciate the solidarity. Get ready for the day. Put on armor, dark blazer, statement necklace, bold lipstick. We need to look powerful and in control. Get to campus early and go straight to the dean's office. Submit my formal complaint in person. The administrative assistant is sympathetic. Says the dean will review it and get back to me. Feel a small sense of satisfaction. Now it's official, on the record. Go to my office and prepare for today's classes. The problem student isn't in any of my classes today. Should be smooth sailing. Check my email, and there's a message from him. Sent late last night. He's attached a paper draft for my review. It's not due for another week, but he wanted to get feedback early. Of course he did. Probably trying to suck up after yesterday. Open the attachment against my better judgment. It's a 20-page paper on intersectionality in class. Well-researched, properly cited, engaging with complex theory. Addresses some of the questions he raised in class. Presents multiple perspectives fairly. Ultimately argues for a more nuanced approach than what I've been teaching. It's good. Objectively, it's very good. Which makes me furious. He's using his privilege and access to education to undermine feminist pedagogy. Probably had tutors and resources his whole life. That's the only way someone could write this well. Start reading through it with my red pen, marking every instance where he could have engaged more deeply, noting places where his argument relies on patriarchal assumptions, even though honestly those criticisms are a bit of a stretch. Spend 2 hours writing detailed feedback. Most of it is about how he needs to center women's voices more. Print it out and put it in his student mailbox. The paper is probably a quality work, but I'm going to give it a B+ because his framework is problematic. Have my classes for the day, which go fine. Nobody challenges me. Everyone takes notes quietly. It's how teaching should be. Get through the day without incident. Check my email before leaving, and there's a message from the dean. Wants to meet with me tomorrow to discuss my complaint. Also wants to meet with the student. My heart races, reading this. This is happening. It's being taken seriously. Spend the evening preparing for the meeting. Write out talking points about hostile learning environment. Document every instance of the student's questions. Frame them all as attempts to undermine my authority. Practice saying it out loud so I sound confident. The next day, I arrive at the dean's office 15 minutes early. Want to get there before the student. Get to set the narrative first. Dean is a older man who's always been polite to me. Not particularly progressive, but not overtly sexist either. He invites me in and offers coffee. I accept, even though I'm already jittery from nerves. He asks me to explain the situation in my own words. Launch into my prepared speech about systematic targeting. Describe how the student monopolized class time. Explain how his questions were designed to embarrass me. Mention the emotional distress that caused me to end class early. The dean listens carefully, taking notes. Asks a few clarifying questions. Wants to know specific examples of what the student said. Realize, as I'm recounting them, that they sound pretty reasonable out of context. Try to explain the subtext and the tone. The dean nods, but I can't read his expression. He thanks me for coming in and says he'll speak with the student next. Asks if I'm willing to meet together with the student and a mediator. Everything in me wants to say no, but if I refuse, it makes me look unreasonable. Agree reluctantly. Leave the office and see the student sitting in the waiting area. He stands up when he sees me, nods politely. I ignore him and walk past. Spend the next hour in my office, anxiously waiting. Finally get an email from the dean. He's proposing a mediated conversation next week. Suggests we discuss expectations for classroom discourse. It's not the decisive action I wanted. He's not punishing the student or even warning him officially. Just wants us to talk it out like the problem is mutual. Feel betrayed by the system. Of course, the dean sides with the male student. It's the old boys club protecting their own. Respond, agreeing to the mediation, but note my concerns about safety. The next few days are tense. Word has spread around campus about the complaint. Some students are supportive. Others think I overreacted. Can feel people watching me in the hallways. Judging me. Evaluating whether I'm being reasonable. My feminist student group organizes a solidarity event. About 15 people show up, which is nice, but also feels small. We talk about the challenges women face in academia. Everyone shares. Stories of being undermined by male students or colleagues. It's cathartic, but also depressing. Realize this is a pattern that will never end. The patriarchy is too entrenched. Day of the mediation arrives. Meet in a conference room with the dean and a professional mediator. The student arrives right on time. He's dressed professionally, looks calm. We sit across from each other at the table. Mediator explains the process. Each person gets to share their perspective. Then we work toward mutual understanding. I go first and explain how I felt attacked in my own classroom. Describe the emotional impact of being challenged repeatedly. Talk about how this is part of a larger pattern of men silencing women. Get emotional talking about it. Mediator hands me tissues. Student listens quietly, doesn't interrupt. When I'm done, it's his turn. He speaks calmly and clearly. Says he never intended to make me feel attacked. Explains that he asks questions because he's genuinely trying to learn. Mentions that he comes from a background where critical thinking was encouraged. Says he has deep respect for expertise, but also values intellectual discourse. Apologizes if his approach made me uncomfortable. Offers to be more mindful of how many questions he asks. Suggests he could save some questions for office hours instead. It all sounds so reasonable, which makes me feel like the unreasonable one. Mediator asks what outcome I'm looking for. Want to say, I want him out of my class. But that sounds petty. Say I want him to respect my authority and not dominate class discussion. He agrees to both things. Mediator asks if we can establish some ground rules. We spend 30 minutes creating guidelines for classroom participation. Maximum 2 questions per student per class. Additional questions can be asked during office hours. Students should raise hands and wait to be called on. Professor has final say on when to move on from a topic. It's all very formal and structured, which I guess is better than nothing. At the end, the student extends his hand to shake. I shake it limply. Mediator seems pleased with the resolution. Dean thanks us both for being willing to engage in dialogue. Leave feeling like I lost somehow. He came across as the reasonable one, willing to compromise. I came across as the emotional one, who couldn't handle questions. Back in my office, I slump in my chair. This isn't how it was supposed to go. was supposed to be vindicated. He was supposed to be punished for his male aggression. Instead, we have a mutual agreement, like we're equals. He's a student, and I'm a professor with a PhD. We're not equals. Check my phone and see posts from other faculty about the situation. Some are supportive. Others are subtly critical. One male professor posted something about the importance of academic freedom, encouraging difficult questions in the classroom. It's clearly about my situation, even though he doesn't name me. Several people have liked and commented, agreeing, feel like I'm being attacked from all sides. The conservative students probably love this. Proof that feminist professors are unreasonable. The moderate students probably think I can't handle basic questions. Even some of my feminist allies seem to think I overreacted. Only my closest circle still fully supports me. And even they might have private doubts they're not sharing. Next class with that student is in 2 days. Spend the time preparing. Going to stick strictly to lecture format. Minimal time for questions. If he raises his hand, I'll acknowledge him briefly and move on, not giving him any opportunity to make me look bad again. Day of class arrives. Get there early and write the new participation rules on the board. Students file in and see them. Some look confused. Others seem to understand why. The student arrives and sits in his usual spot, makes eye contact with me, and nods. I nod back curtly. Start my lecture. Going to power through this. Talk for 40 minutes. Straight. Don't pause for questions. Just keep going. Can see students getting restless. Some are on their phones. Others look bored. But nobody is challenging me. This is what I wanted, right? Control over my own classroom. Near the end, I allow 5 minutes for questions. A few hands go up. Call on students who I know will ask softball questions. They ask basic clarification things. I answer briefly. His hand goes up. Consider ignoring it, but that would violate our agreement. Call on him. He asks a straightforward question about one of the theorists I mentioned. Wants clarification on a specific point. It's not challenging or aggressive. Just a normal question. Answer it normally. He thanks me and doesn't follow up. Class ends. I dismiss everyone. He doesn't approach my desk. Just packs up and leaves with everyone else. It was fine. Totally normal. So why do I feel so unsatisfied? I wanted some kind of resolution or vindication. Instead, it's just back to normal. Except not really normal. Because now there's this history. This documented complaint. This mediation. Everyone knows about it. My reputation has taken a hit. Some students probably requested transfers out of my classes. Enrollment numbers for next semester will probably be down. All because one man couldn't just sit there and accept what I was teaching. I had to question everything. Had to use his male confidence to challenge a woman expert. And now I'm the one who looks bad. The one who couldn't handle a few questions. The oversensitive feminist who cried and filed a complaint. It's so unfair. Spend the evening rage posting on my private feminist groups. They're still supportive, but even there I can sense some fatigue. Like maybe I'm talking about this too much. Maybe I should just move on. But I can't move on. It's eating at me. This feeling of being outsmarted, outmaneuvered by someone who should be beneath me. Check his latest paper submission. It's even better than the last one. Incorporates feedback, but maintains his own perspective. Cites sources I've never even heard of. Makes arguments I can't easily dismiss. Going to have to give it an A- at least. Anything lower would be obviously biased. Right, minimal feedback. Just good work. And a few minor citation corrections. Don't want to encourage him too much. Weeks go by and settle into an uncomfortable routine. He comes to class, participates minimally, turns in excellent work. I lecture, answer basic questions, avoid prolonged discussions. The energy in the class has changed though. Less engagement overall. Other students have picked up on the tension. They're quieter, less willing to participate, probably afraid of triggering another incident. My teaching evaluations this semester are going to be terrible. Can already predict the comments. Professor seems defensive, doesn't encourage discussion, appears biased against male students. It's all his fault. If he had just accepted my expertise, none of this would have happened. Could have been a normal semester. Instead, my reputation is damaged. My confidence is shaken. My classroom dynamics are ruined. And he just sits there calmly taking notes. Probably thinks he won. Probably tells his friends about the crazy feminist professor he broke. Doubt he even understands the harm he caused. That's the privilege. He gets to move through the world. questioning and challenging, while women like me have to defend our basic right to authority. Semester is finally ending. Put submit final grades. Give him an A- overall, despite wanting to give him lower. You can't justify anything else based on his work. It's objectively excellent, which somehow makes everything worse. If he was a bad student, I could dismiss him as a troublemaker. But he's good, smart, engaged, thoughtful, just completely unwilling to accept what I teach without question. And apparently that's considered a virtue in academic spaces. Critical thinking, they call it. But it's really just male entitlement to challenge women. Write my teaching notes for next semester. Going to restructure the class to prevent this from happening again. More lecture, less discussion. Stricter participation rules. Maybe require written questions submitted in advance. That way I can screen out anything too challenging. Can maintain control. Look at my course evaluations when they come in. They're the worst I've ever gotten. Students complain about lack of discussion. We say the class felt tense and unwelcoming. Several mention that I seemed defensive and closed off. One student writes that I couldn't handle being questioned. Another says I played favorites with students who agreed with me. The few positive reviews are from my core feminist students. They appreciated the content even if the delivery was off. Overall rating has dropped significantly. Department head will definitely notice. Might affect my chances for tenure. All because of one man who couldn't just shut up and listen. Sit in my office, staring at the evaluations, feeling defeated. This was supposed to be my calling. Teaching the next generation about feminism and social justice. Changing minds and challenging the patriarchy. Instead, I'm seen as a joke. The professor who cried because a student asked questions. My expertise dismissed. My authority undermined. And the worst part is, I can't even explain it to people who don't already get it. They just see a student asking questions and a professor overreacting. They don't see the systematic pattern, the male entitlement, the subtle aggression, the way he weaponized politeness. Think about that student going forward in his life, probably feeling validated, thinking his questions were justified, not understanding that he participated in oppression. He'll probably tell this story at parties, about the time he debated his feminist professor, leaving out how he made me cry, how he damaged my career, how he contributed to the silencing of women in academia. Pour myself a drink, even though it's only afternoon. Scroll through social media. See posts from other feminists about their struggles. Feel solidarity, but also exhaustion. This fight never ends. Every small battle feels like it could be the one that breaks you, and men just get to coast through life, asking their questions, demanding their answers, never having to justify their existence or expertise. Check my email one more time. There's a message from the student. My heart sinks. It's a thank you note. Says he learned a lot from my class, despite our rocky start. Appreciates my willingness to engage with difficult questions. Hopes there's no hard feelings. Wishes me well. It's gracious and professional, which makes me hate it. He gets to be the bigger person, the mature one who extends an olive branch, while I'm the bitter one who can't let it go. Don't respond. Just close my laptop and put my head in my hands. This is what losing feels like. Not a dramatic confrontation. Just a slow erosion of authority and respect. Death by 1,000 questions. And nobody will ever understand why it hurt so much, except other women who have been through the same thing. We'll commiserate in our private groups, share our stories of male students who challenged us, validate each other's pain, but nothing will change. The patriarchy will keep operating. Men will keep questioning women's expertise, and will keep being told we're overreacting. Semester ends, and I don't see that student again. He's probably moved on to torment some other female professor. Or maybe he's in classes with male professors who welcome his questions, who engage with him as an intellectual equal, because men are allowed to question other men. It's only when they question women that it's seen as healthy debate. Start planning for next semester. Going to be even more careful, even more controlled. Can't afford another incident like this. My career might not survive it. Sit alone in my office as the sun sets, surrounded by my books and my degrees and my feminist theory. All of it supposed to mean something, supposed to give me authority and respect. But one confident man was all it took to make me feel small and powerless, to expose me as fragile, to win. and he probably doesn't even realize he was playing a game. That's the privilege. He got to just be curious and engaged, while I had to fight for my basic credibility, and I lost.